Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you are in the world. I am not at home. You can see the backdrop here it's not what you normally see here. I'm not in Kahuna today. I am in, I don't even know if it's sunny. I haven't even walked outside yet. I'm in Canberra. Sarah's actually looking out the window right now, and it's probably still dark, so we can't even tell you what the weather's doing today. But it's Canberra, so it's probably this deep in, well, lies and corruption, because this is the capital of Australia. Anyway, today I've got a cool guest coming on. I'll better go back to comments here because I can see you guys are, oh my God, behind you. Yes, it's all different. It's all different. This is a hotel room. There's no lights. There's no Lego International Space Stations and stuff over the back here. So today's guest is Scott Burne. And if you haven't seen his work, well, I've got some work here to show you, but he's a gun photographer. If you don't know who this guy is, and you actually have a camera in your hand from time to time, you should hang your head in shame. This guy, dead set bloody legend. Let's bring him on.
Thank you, sir. That's very kind of you.
How are you, Scott?
I'm happy. I do want to point out I have a little bit of an echo from you, so I'm not sure what's causing that. But...
Is it still going on now? Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. If it turns to pot, we might have to close it early. I'm going that well. The internet connection here. When we looked for a hotel, I was looking at mainly for the internet to make sure the internet was going to be good, because I knew this was going to fall on that morning. But I'm tethering to my iPhone, so we'll just see how we go.
All righty, I'll work with it.
Greg McMillan says no echo this end.
Yeah. Okay, that's all that matters. If the listeners aren't hearing it, then I can deal with it.
Interesting point here, Scott. I knew who you were, but I didn't know who. I didn't know that you had a podcast and stuff. And because I follow Greg McMillan, he's the podcaster for iPhoneography podcast. I saw him share something of yours on Twitter. That's how I actually found you. So anyway, quick story there.
Oh, so well, that's good. Yeah, thank you to Greg.
So I don't know if I didn't actually warn you about this either, Scott. I probably should have. Every guest that comes onto here, I ask them to describe themselves in a tweet. So 140 characters. Who is Scott Burne? But I'm going to keep on saying your name bloody wrong the whole time that you're here.
It's Bourne, like the Bourne Identity.
I know. And every time I look at it, I think you say it the same way.
Yeah.
So who are you?
I am an ornithologist and a photographer who loves birds more than life and feels lucky to still be alive during this time of amazing technology, including mobile photography.
Yeah, absolutely. The phone photography, the mobile photography, I didn't really speak to you about this before we went live. I've got a Facebook community over there, and it is probably the best photography Facebook community I've seen. The respect that's offered to everyone there, and I know you've spoken about this on your podcast with the gear envy and the gear hate and all that sort of stuff. In phone photography, you've got two camps. You've got the iPhones and you've got, well, everything else really. Well, you could split into three really: the iPhones, the Androids, and then the Pixels. But the photos that this community puts out on that Facebook group, it doesn't matter what phone they have. People are just encouraging. And what phone did you use? That's amazing. I didn't realize I could do that. You know, it's such a good group.
That's good.
Yeah. So what phone do you use?
I currently use an iPhone 13 Pro. Now, it's unusual for me not to buy the Max, but this was the first year that Apple put all the good camera stuff in both the Pro and the Max. And I have always bought the Max, but I thought, maybe it's better to have a smaller phone. I didn't know if I would like it. I hadn't had one in a while, so I bought it. It was $100 cheaper, a little less battery life, but otherwise they're completely identical. And I kind of regret that I didn't get the Max because my eyes aren't working as well as they used to. So next time around, I will get the Max. But yeah, it's an iPhone 13 Pro fully loaded with the maximum amount of storage. And by the way, no cellular carrier. I use it strictly as a camera.
Yeah. Yep, that's fair enough. When I was looking at the 13 and the 13 Pro, that's why I went to the Pro.
Yeah.
Just so I could see the damn thing at nighttime. Yeah, that was the main reason. An interesting conversation. We'll have it in a minute after we'll look at your photos in a second, but I am interested about apps that you use. It's one of the tell everybody about your podcast.
Well, I do a show with Jefferson Graham. Jefferson Graham is a longtime technology columnist at USA Today, which is one of the largest newspapers in the United States. He covered technology for decades there. He happens to also be a professional photographer who relies heavily on the iPhone. In fact, he produces a television series called Photo Walks TV almost exclusively on the iPhone, where he goes to all these cool places and shows people. And we do a show together called the iPhone. What is it called? I don't know. The iPhone
photo show.
Yeah. See, here's the thing.
It's your show.
I did the original, very first ever iPhone show all the way back before the iPhone was launched, and we called it the Apple Phone Show because at that time we did not know whether or not it was going to be called iPhone. And we started the show 9 months before Steve did the talk on stage, which I was there for. And so I'd done this podcast, and it amassed a lot of followers, and it was called the Apple Phone Show. So sometimes I have to stop and think, no, it's the iPhone Photo Show. And the difference is with the two shows is this one, we just cover the camera. We don't discuss anything about the iPhone other than the camera, and it's used for both stills and video.
Yep, that's fair enough too. I'm kind of similar in what I do with the phones on my channel. Is it's just the camera. Every time I go away from that, the content that I put out just dives, and I figure there's plenty of other people out in the world there who are doing that sort of content. Why do it? Just stick to my guns, if you like. Let's have a look through some comments here. Lots of people up here and awake and ready to go. The sound's okay for me. Patrika, all the way in Belgium, I think he is. He's a gun photographer. He uses the Huawei P30. Huawei P30 he uses and takes some amazing photos. Throttle Down Under. Oh, g'day. He's if you're into motorcycles and stuff, this guy Throttle Down Under. He's another YouTuber who basically reviews motorcycles and cool cars. He's quite entertaining. Ron Duval, g'day, mate. I'm really convinced I'm an alien if older people than me understand Twitter. I don't use Twitter as anything other than finding people, really, like yourself. Like if it wasn't for Twitter, I wouldn't have contacted you because of the podcast. I didn't even know you had a podcast until Greg shared it. And the main reason I don't use it is for that comment right there. It's a really toxic, it can be a really sort of toxic place to be. I think it is anyway.
Well, I mostly just post there, and then I'm sorry, I'm an old man, so I think of broadcasting. I used to work on the real radio, as we call it here in the United States, put myself through college as a DJ, and I think it's one person, many people listening. So that's the way I treat Twitter. And those who really engage with me tend to go over to my other platform, which is called iPhonePhotoTeam.com. But I got I got more than 200,000 followers, which is shocking to me because I'm a fat, ugly old man and I don't understand. I occasionally go on Twitter and tell people to get off my lawn, but they're still there for some reason. And, if I were a pretty girl, I'd have 2 million followers, but I can't grow a man bun. I don't look good in lumberjack clothing. I just don't fit the mold. But nevertheless, I enjoy using Twitter. I've been on for many years. Like the year after they started, I got on. And I have a large following of photographers there of all types, not just iPhonographers.
Yep. You're not going to wear a bikini and stuff? Next time I get you on, we're going to wear that up.
If I wear a bikini and there are any females of childbearing age who see that, I could permanently scar them for life so they couldn't have children. So
that's gold. Dear idea. This guy here, Mike Goyne. He's actually so when I, this is hilarious. Like my wife's in the room here with me, and she was over there reading her book. Well, because it's 6 o'clock in the morning here, and she doesn't want to be on the camera, so she like ducks down when she goes over this way to make a coffee or something. It's pretty funny. It's like you don't need to do that. It's quite all right. But Mike Goyne, he's so with the community that we have here and the guests that I bring on here. So, like I said to you before we went live, I tried to bring somebody on who can bring something to the community and vice versa. And I also like to bring on people from the community, people who aren't content creators at all. They're just bloody good photographers. And Mike is one of them. He does. So he's shooting a Samsung Galaxy S20 FE. It's not a flagship phone. There she goes again. She's like crawling across the floor. You can't see it. You might just think I'm making that up, but she does exist. She's over there. He takes some absolutely amazing nighttime star trail photos, Milky Way photos. It's if you're on Facebook, Scott, I'll hit you up after and show you where this group is and come along and join. Have a look at some of the photos that are on there. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I'm also on Facebook, same, just by my name, Scott Burne.
Yep. No worries.
Yeah, I have tried TikTok. I can't do it.
Yep.
and so that's never going to happen. I have a few, I don't know, like 15,000 followers on Instagram. I don't care for it. Twitter just seems to work for me. And I don't, I'm an old man. I don't need to be everywhere all at once.
Yeah.
And I don't do much with video because I have a face built for radio. So it's just
You're not alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I first started the YouTube channel, I'm a mid-40s bloke. I don't look like anything that anyone wants to look at, so I better make sure I can create something cool to look at from the phone. Oh dear, oh dear. Who's Mr. S? They should make a group forming function on Insta the same as for people. Yeah, that's fair enough too. I think Greg McMillan actually on Twitter, he was talking about groups on Twitter now. You can have groups on Twitter. Similar sort of thing, I think. I might actually ask Greg about this later. Anyway, let's have a look at some of your photos, mate.
Okay.
So I'm going to let you talk about these. I've just found a different way to put these on the screen, so I think that looks pretty good.
Yeah, this is from last November at a place called Bosque del Apache, New Mexico. It's a national wildlife refuge. In the United States, we have hundreds of these set aside for wildlife to preserve them. And this was one of those deals where there was no color in the sky. Everybody was in their car going home. And then just it can happen during the afterglow. Boom, the sky lit up. And it's another reason I advocate for mobile photography, because it was very easy to quickly grab my iPhone 13 and snag a shot. And there are 3 sandhill cranes in the bottom right corner, so it's technically still a bird photograph.
There's a guy in the community, I'm pretty sure he'd be in here, who likes taking photos of birds, and he uses the S21 Ultra and the computational photography. Once it starts pushing out at a distance, at a zoom, it doesn't know what a bird is, and it just looks like a pixelated blob of nothingness. But what I like about this, it's something I think that the phones really shine with, is that dynamic range and the silhouetting, and that there just nails it with those 3 birds. You sent me probably 6 or 7 photos, and this one here is probably my favorite because of those birds.
Yeah, I like this shot. It was fun, and again, it couldn't have happened. I was there doing a lot of cinematography for a job I'm doing for a doc that's going to go on broadcast. And so I had a 12K Ursa from Blackmagic and a 6K Blackmagic Cinema Pro camera sitting next to me. Neither of them were turned on. It's 30 seconds to boot up. This was gone in 30 seconds. So this is the advantage of the iPhone. I've made a print of this thing that's 30 by 40. It looks great.
Is that right? That's a good
Yeah.
size phone.
I work with
Yeah.
Whitewall in Germany, and they use a hardware RIP. RIP stands for
Yep.
raster image
Image
processor.
price.
It's
Yep.
much more advanced than traditional Photoshop interpolation. And, they think some of my prints can go 50 inches. And I actually have a show
Really?
coming up. It's going to be likely in December of 7 to 9 iPhone images that are going to be printed 30 to 40 inches. And this uses a photographic process. It's printed on Fuji Crystal Archive. It's
Yep.
put under acrylic glass. It's the real
Hmm.
deal. And yeah, I really enjoy printing. I print every week. And I'm an old guy, so for me, a photo isn't a photo until it's a print. I print almost every picture of mine that I like.
That's cool. That's very cool. I don't print many iPhone photos because I've never been able to replicate the size. I could
Well,
never be able to print the
if you
size.
shoot, here's the secret: shoot raw,
Yeah.
number one,
Hmm.
and then use some form of interpolation. I love Topaz Gigapixel for software
Okay.
rip. It works very
Yep.
well. You can go 2x, and
Yep.
then if you print on canvas, canvas is very forgiving. So
Yeah.
it's easy to do 30-inch canvases from an iPhone if you do those two
Hmm.
things: shoot raw,
Yep.
and then use Gigapixel to double the size. You're good to
Yep.
go.
The downside of for what I do, mainly the nighttime stuff, the astrophotography stuff, it doesn't lend itself too well to canvas printing.
Yeah,
It
because
just
you lose
doesn't.
the detail.
You, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I like the idea of that. What you're saying
Well, spend
here.
$600 and send one to Whitewall and get it done at 42 inches.
I may well do that. I
Yeah,
may well do that.
I highly
Yeah.
recommend them.
Let's have a look at your next photo.
This was in Alaska. I was very lucky. I led 3 workshops in the last 2 years. They all hit right before the new variants did, so they were all at times
Hmm.
when everything was relatively safe and open. So this
Yep.
was in June of 2021, and Delta was just about to hit, and
Hmm.
we were safe though for a while. And this is 2 rivers actually. It's the Kenai River is the most famous one. This is the Kenai Fjords National Park in the background, and I just decided to make it a black and white. I did that in post. I didn't do it in
Yep.
camera because I do tend to shoot raw. And
Yes.
I used First Light from Filmic Pro for this. I happen to think their
Hmm.
raw files are the highest quality I have found in all my tests.
So I've never thought of using Filmic Pro for stills.
Well, it's not. It's Filmic Pro is the company, but they make a product called First Light that is just for
Yeah.
stills.
Oh, I didn't
Yeah,
know that. That's
it's
worth looking at.
awesome. It's awesome.
Um, it's a ripper photo. The depth of field in that is just amazing.
Yeah,
That's just crazy
uh,
good.
it's the nice thing about First Light is it gives you more camera-like controls. So it actually has things like focus peaking and, all the
Mm.
ways that you want to decide what's in focus, control your exposure. I do treat my iPhone like any quote unquote real camera. I mount it on a
Yep.
tripod. I use a, remote release. I find that the more we treat these things like real cameras, the more they act like real cameras.
Yeah. Yep. I totally agree. Totally agree. Um, third one.
And this is from my backyard. This is from my porch, believe it or not.
uh,
I live on the backside of Olympic National Park, on the Kitsap Peninsula and near Seattle.
mhm.
And this is literally just sitting in my easy chair on my porch. And I looked up and the colors were there. And I grabbed my phone, put it on a little tripod mount, and made a picture.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Do you do anything at nighttime? Do you do any nighttime photo, astrophotography stuff?
I do. I've done a little bit at Bosque del Apache as the birds start to wake up.
Hmm.
I have never mastered all the cool stuff I know that you do, and the thing is, the iPhone is so good at that, I think I need to do some practice, so I'm actually leaving next week for Olympic National Park, this place that I'm taking a picture of. I'm on the back side of it where I live. I'm going around to
Yep.
the front side of it where
Oh, I see.
how you're supposed to get in, and I'm gonna
Yep.
go try to do some stuff up on Hurricane Ridge because you get elevation, and try to do
Yep.
some nighttime stuff with some of the trees in the foreground and things like that.
Mm.
But I haven't experimented with that all that much because, again, my forte is really bird photography. I'll take a nice picture like
Yep.
this if I see it, but
Yep.
what I do for a living is make photographs of birds.
Oh, absolutely. And when I looked at your website, all the bald eagle stuff that you do, that's obviously not with a phone, but
I
they're just
actually have a
amazing
couple
photos.
that I did this year with an
Oh,
iPhone.
really?
In fact, I have a behind the scenes shot of me holding the small rig cage with
Yep.
my iPhone, and I am standing 24 inches from a juvenile bald eagle. And the 77
Ooh.
millimeter lens did a good job. I'm a little
Okay.
bit of a bird whisperer, so I can get pretty close to the birds. But yeah,
Right.
it's tough to do the head and shoulder portrait shot with an iPhone, which is why anyone
Mhm.
who's listening to this show, if you make a telephoto lens that actually works, that will get me out there around 3 or 400 millimeters effective focal length, call me. Let's talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think if anyone did that and did it well, they'd be selling them hand over fist for phones.
Yeah, I mean, we
Um,
gotta work on that, but I do have fun with those cameras, and occasionally I have to switch to other cameras just because the thing about birds is they tend not to like people.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I put these 3 photos here. Um, I'll show you these. These are all I picked out my best iPhone Astro photos, and to look at these are all with I think they're all with iPhone 13 Pro Max. The people who watch my stuff would have seen these photos before, but because you're an iPhone person and you're out there in the wilderness anyway, I thought I'll just show you these sorts of things. So this here is a 30-second night mode photo shooting Pro RAW, and I've just got an LED torch that it varies in intensity, so it goes up in percentages, and the light painting on this is it's in a 30-second photo, it's about 3 seconds worth of light at a very
Wow.
dim amount of light. Yeah. So, and the thing that I like about there are definitely better phones, in my opinion, to do astrophotography with, but the detail in that truck there from one frame, just one shot, and still get those stars nice and crisp in the background, and as easy as putting it on a tripod, touching to focus on the stars, hitting the shutter button, and that's it. It's so easy to do with an
It's
iPhone.
brilliant. It's brilliant. It looks really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. The ease in which it does it with the iPhone is just crazy good. Same with this,
See,
same principle.
you have the secret down. You always have a cool foreground object, and some of this stuff. When I look at the star pictures, all they have is the stars, and that I lose interest. But it's like a
Mhm.
sunset with nothing in the foreground. But this is cool. Did you light paint the tree as well?
Yeah, so the pink that's behind the tree is it's just like an LED video, RGB video light,
Oh,
LED light, and you bring it down to because a lot of different companies they send me these things to review, and I
sure.
figure, well, I'll put them into these sorts of photos, and it just works. It um, to bring it down to like 1% because it's so far away from where I'm taking the photo. It needs to be on and shining for that whole 30 seconds. So it as low as you can get it, that's 1%. You can't even see that on with the naked eye, and the rest of it is lit with that same torch that I was talking about. It does such a good job. And this is probably out of all the photos that I've taken this is actually with the iPhone 12 Pro Max, and this is probably my favorite photo I've ever taken with a phone. And there's not even a star in the photo. that the technique of light painting on this particular thing is I've got one, two, three. There's 4 lights going on in this photo. I've got these those small little cube lights.
Right.
Lume Cube is one of them. I use Lytra torches. They're basically the same thing. They're just
Yeah.
inch by inch cubes. and you can adjust the intensity of those cubes. And I've got one under the vehicle, one in the back of the vehicle, one inside the interior on the vehicle, and then I'm hitting the rest of it multiple times with the torch from different angles. And it just so happened that behind in the sky behind it there, it's there's a town there. So I generally avoid all the towns because of the light pollution. But this one here with the light that was coming bouncing off the cloud, it just makes the photo. It's a ripper photo.
Well, I
Absolutely love
can
it.
tell you something, man. This is very cool, and you don't know this about me because you just found out about me. But um, most folks know that I have been a fairly avid car collector throughout my life,
Ah.
and I could tell you there's some folks in the U.S. that have some very large car collections that would love to have their Ferrari, Lamborghini, etc., photographed in this fashion. So you just gave me an idea, which I do intend to steal.
Absolutely. So I actually have a video. This is actually from a video. All three of those photos are from video tutorials that I've done.
I got it. You got to send me a link to that.
Yeah, this one here is actually my brother-in-law. He up in Queensland. He finds these cars in paddocks and with trees growing through them and all sorts of stuff, and he basically refurbishes them just like this. And he'd have probably, I don't know, maybe 20 or so of these sorts of cars. Just amazing work he does. This one here, when I shot the video for this, he's got one that he hasn't done anything with, and then he's got this one that he's pretty well finished. And to see the difference in the two is just ridiculous. It's amazing. He does a really, really good job.
Nicely done, sir.
I'll send you a link to that once we're done. Foreground and astrophotography, absolutely. I think there's two ways for astro. So while I was showing you these, is because I've seen all these photos that you've taken out and about, is that you're already in a position by the look of it when you're going out to take these bird photos, and especially that last one from the back porch of your house, for crying out loud, you can absolutely do this. Yeah. So a lot of the photos that I do in my tutorials, just teaching the technique of what I do, is actually from my backyard as well. I live at a place that has virtually no light pollution. I live in a Bortle 2 site. I don't know if you know much about light pollution numbers, but it's pretty low.
Yeah. Well, I live on the
just
back.
Looking at.
I live in the forest on the backside of the national park, so I'm in the middle of no place.
Yeah, you, just from that comment, I would say you'd be able to do these things.
Well, I'm going to try.
Easy as.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And plus, I also spend a great deal of time in Alaska because my principal job is photographing bald eagles. I'm the go-to guy for bald eagle photography, and I'm up there all the time. And I'm out there sometimes that or bear photography. When I go up to Kaflia Bay, there are less than probably 3,000 humans that have ever been there. And it's in the real remote area where the largest bears in the world are. The giant grizzly called coastal brown bears. If you ever heard of Timothy Treadwell, that's where he was killed. He used to be a Canon photographer and there's a series of TV show that he did, and then there was a movie called The Treadwell Diaries, and it was a documentary done by Werner Herzog. In that place, which you can only get to by float plane or boat, it's very remote. You could see with the naked eye the kind of stuff that you do with the iPhone.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. That's very, very cool. Yeah, at night when I walk out to my backyard, and I'm in a Bortle 2 location, so there's a little bit of light pollution, but it's not a lot. But you can see that line of stars across the sky.
Yeah.
There's tools that you use to find where it's going to be in the sky. But now I've been doing it long enough that I can see that line of stars, and I go, that galactic core is going to be just there. It's amazing what you can see when there's no light pollution. It's incredible.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a try. It's the iPhone is perfect for that. The low light videos that my friend Jefferson makes, he makes a lot of time lapses at dawn, and he pushes a button and they come out perfect. And the people say, well, real pros wouldn't use that. Well, I gotta tell you something. I'm a real pro, and all I'm interested in is getting my money, and I get paid to do this. I
Yep.
don't get paid to do this with the mouse. So the
Yeah.
easier it is to get that result, the better, as far as I'm
Yep.
concerned.
Yeah.
Amateurs tend to have a feeling that the harder it was to get a photo, the better it is. But that's
No.
pure camera club stuff. Pros, we want to make it as simple as
Yep.
possible because we're doing this for a living. And you
Yep.
know, this is year 50 for me. This is my 50th year. That is a
Yep.
scary thing to say and admit in
Hmm.
public. But
Yep.
you know, I don't take a camera on vacation. I
Yeah.
I work, you know,
It's a valid point.
my barber doesn't give haircuts when he's on vacation, and my friend who's a pilot gets on a boat every time he's on a vacation. I go on vacation to get away from it. The rest of the
Yeah.
time, I can do it 300 days a year, and that's enough.
Yeah, that's fair enough, mate. It's absolutely fair enough. I think every time I talk to anybody about phones versus cameras, or as simple as it is from a phone versus the mouse jockey and making it an image at the end of it, it's the end result is what matters to me. And if I can get a good result by pushing a couple of buttons versus spending an hour and a half in front of the screen lining things up, I'm going to push that button every single time. Then the job's done. We move on to
Well,
the next one.
well, in 2019, before the pandemic, if you're a bird photographer, the pinnacle is to get published in Bird Watching magazine. And
Mm-hmm.
I was in 4 months in a row, 4 successive months I got
Yeah, right.
published. And the thing that amateurs need to understand is there's a series of questions I have never, ever, ever, ever been asked by the people that pay me. What f-stop
Mm-hmm.
was that? What shutter speed was that? What camera did you use? What kind of strap do
Yeah,
you use? Do you use
yeah.
Photoshop or Lightroom? None of those questions have ever been asked of me by the guy that writes me a check. So
Yep.
I think the focus needs to shift to the result,
Yeah.
because to me, this is photography is such a gift to us because
Mm-hmm.
it gives us this ability to express ourselves just the way
Yep.
musicians can express themselves through an instrument or their voice.
Mm-hmm.
Sculptors express themselves through their hands. We get to express ourselves and show the people in the world who we are, and we get to protect memories. I like to say, I'm not a photographer. I'm a high priest of memory protection, and you know, I
That's
protect
gold.
memory. I protect memories. I protect my own. I protect my subjects' memories. I
Yeah.
protect memories of places that people will never see otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
So all I care about, and I mean all I care about, is what is the result, and does the result move somebody? So the thing
Yep.
that we talk about on these shows often is the gear. The thing we should be talking about is emotion and feeling. And you know, a perfect example would be, you can take a savant who can play every note in Mozart's 40th concerto, but not with any accents or any kind of pauses, just plays the
Mm-hmm.
notes in perfect succession. That's not music.
Yep.
Music comes from the space between the notes. And
Mm-hmm.
in photography, I like to say, feel your way to a photograph. What are
Yep.
you trying to
Yep.
say here? What about this moves you? What if
Mm-hmm.
this is the last photograph you'll ever get to take?
That's
What,
good. I like that.
you know, these are the things
Yeah.
that I put into my work, and after 50 years, it's what I think about, and I give no thought whatsoever to
Mm-hmm.
gear or f-stops or whatever. I
Yeah.
use what I can. I get the results out there. I get
Mm.
my paycheck. I'm a happy man.
Yeah. That's very cool. I like that. Very, very cool. There is the there's some of these comments here. Um, can we mimic the Pixel 4? So I don't know. With the astrophotography, with the iPhone, you basically put it on a tripod, point it where you want, touch it for focus, and hit the shutter button and wait. And at the end of it, you get a really cool result of astrophotography. With the Samsung phone, or with all the Android phones, you need to go into the pro mode and shoot more manually. With the Pixel phone, the Pixel is probably the smartest phone on the market at the moment, mainly because of the camera app that it has. And it shoots a 4 minute, well, the photo takes 4 minutes to take, but it takes 16-second photos, lots of them, and stacks them and merges them together and eliminates most of the noise. And it's pin sharp. It's very, very clever. But what he's asking here is, can we do it with the iPhone? I've done videos where you bring it onto the computer and you stack it with different programs, but the way that the computational photography works in an iPhone, it has, when it's really, really, really dark, it has all these artifacts that I think that the algorithms in the computational photography can't work out what to do with it, and you get these artifacts that are all over the sky, and stacking them, it doesn't eliminate them. So that's a long answer to no. It's possible, but it's not worth doing it. It's
What's
just
the
not worth
current
doing it.
Pixel model that's top of the line?
The Pixel 6, but in saying that, it does a good job. But I had a 4A, which was like the budget model previously, and the Pixel 6. If I took a photo with both of those, astrophotography, I honestly can't tell the difference. The Pixel 6, it was a 50 megapixel sensor on it, but they've pixel binned it, so it's only like 12.3 or something. And the difference with the computational photography with those two phones, I honestly can't tell the difference. You may tell the difference in light polluted areas, maybe, but I can't tell the difference with what I do.
When I was in China, I used to be president of Skylum Software, if you're aware of
Mm-hmm.
Luminar, and I
Yep.
used to be president of that company, and I was responsible for both China and U.S. operations. I did have a Pixel phone for a while, which I took to China because I wanted to take a clean phone just in case somebody wanted to look at it, and
Yep.
uh, I was truly amazed by the camera. But
Yep.
unfortunately, on a 13-hour flight to Hong Kong, it decided to update, and then it lost internet connection and bricked. And even though I had purchased the equivalent of Apple Care from Google, they told me it would be 3 to 6 weeks before I could get another phone unless I wanted to buy
Yeah.
a new one. So
Mm-hmm.
that was the end of my Pixel experiment.
Yeah. 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 I think we live in a pretty good time now where it's pretty hard to buy a phone that doesn't have a good camera.
Oh,
They all
yeah.
have their strengths and weaknesses. But the strength in the Pixel phone is astrophotography. It's just amazing. It just takes a long time to do it, but it does. If you like it, it takes the photo and edits your photo all in the one movement. But it just takes a little bit of time. But then you've got all the other aspects of that phone with the camera on that phone. It's incredibly good most of the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just misses it, and for the life of me, I can't work out why. Whereas I think the iPhone, it's incredibly good all the time.
Yeah.
There's things that it does that it could do better, like astrophotography, but for everything else during good lighting or even reasonably good lighting, it just does it really, really well.
Yeah,
And the same
for
with the
me,
Samsung.
the big difference, of course, is I work a lot in video now, and it does
Mm-hmm.
ProRes video, and
Yeah.
ProRes is a standard across the world. And
Mm-hmm.
when I looked at the ProRes footage and I mixed it with the 6K footage from the Blackmagic camera and showed it to like 10 different people, they were not able to pick out which came
Yeah.
from the iPhone and which came from
Yeah.
the 6K Blackmagic camera, which
Yeah.
was all I needed to say, okay, this is it.
That'll
And
do.
I use the ProRes video on a regular basis, and
Okay.
I'm just amazed by it.
So you must have a large storage capacity phone, a terabyte phone or something.
Oh, yeah, I bought the most you could buy, yeah.
Yeah.
Now see,
Yeah.
it won't happen because Apple makes most of its money off services, but I
Hmm.
wish they would copy the Sony Xperia, which has a tray for a micro SD card that
Yeah.
gives you the ability to add a terabyte of
Yeah.
storages, but
Yeah.
Apple wants to sell iCloud subscriptions, so it ain't happening.
Yeah.
But
That's
it
right.
would be cool if it did. But yeah,
Hmm.
but see, again, on that phone, I don't even have a cellular carrier. I carry a little cheap iPhone SE to use as my telephone.
Yeah.
That I
Yeah.
treat this as a camera. It's rigged
Yeah.
up in a cage, it's ready to go, and it has no apps on it that aren't photography related, and it gets dumped every time I use it on a job, so it has
Yep.
tons of storage. So I can shoot for about 2 hours straight
Yeah. Okay.
at 4K 1022 ProRes,
Yep.
and the highest quality, and that's pretty good.
Yeah. I'm in a similar situation where the phones that I carry, I only use one for a phone. The rest of them are just cameras that I bring along to do different things. Yeah. Same
Yeah.
same sort of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's this is an experiment. I said I was gonna do this for a year, and what brought
Mhm.
this about was actually I was supposed to be in Europe filming a doc this year, but then COVID came back. They put it on hold for a
Yep.
year, and I was like, "Okay, what am I gonna do?" So that's when I
Mhm.
decided to start this iPhone project and to
Yep.
see how good can I do with just an iPhone. And then we started the podcast, and we started the community, and then I
Yep.
started printing from it, and all of a sudden I was thinking, and it's only gonna get better. There's a reason that there's a billion
Mm.
of these out there,
That's
and
right.
and
Yeah.
these people all want help with this, so I figured, I've been at this a while, maybe I can help, so that's why I
Yeah.
started the show.
Yep. That's very cool. That's very cool. I was once told to be a real photographer, I need to put down the phone. You need to walk away from that conversation.
Yeah,
It's
I'm not the jackass whisperer, so I don't argue with jackasses. Uh, that's my
I love
advice to everybody. Unless you're the
it.
jackass whisperer, do not argue with jackasses. It's not gonna help you.
I usually say, don't argue with an idiot. They bring you down to their level, their level, and beat you with experience.
Yeah.
There's the easy way and the cowboy. Now, Ron, I didn't realize Ron was in here. Ron is so he's shooting with the Samsung Galaxy S21 and S22 Ultras, and this guy, the images that he pushes out of these phones is just incredible. Astrophotography. You look at the photos that he takes, and you go, I don't think that was taken on a phone. I reckon that was taken on a mirrorless camera. It's incredible the work that he's pushing out. And I think he's in the middle of the state somewhere. I don't want to say where. I don't want to get it all wrong. Tell us where you're at, Ron. I can't remember. How long? I've been photography for probably 15 years or so. How old am I? 47? 47. I'm 47.
I got shoes older than you.
He has shoes older than me.
I would give $12 million to be 47.
That's gold. I have shoes older than you. You think you? There you go. That's a very good question.
Well, the answer to this question is complex, and it's because I'm I'm at the cusp of thinking about retiring for the sixth time, and turns out I suck at retirement. But uh, part of the problem is I'm shooting these docs for broadcast, and they have
Mhm,
a list of approved cameras that you can use, and the
mhm.
iPhone, of course, isn't on there.
Yeah,
So if I get more of those jobs, and I do this for a living, then
yeah.
I won't probably continue this experiment beyond just my own personal photography. But if
Mhm,
I don't get more of those jobs, or if I decide to retire, then absolutely, because it has been so freeing. Like I say, I
yeah,
can promise you. Here's the argument. But Scott, if that's all you got, aren't there shots you're going to miss? The answer is you bet.
yeah.
But you're
That's right.
asking the wrong question. If you're using this, are there shots you're gonna get that you'd miss otherwise? And the answer is yes.
Mm,
Because like I showed you from Bosque del Apache, if you'd have seen that scene literally 10 seconds before I made that photo, not that one, the first one you showed,
yeah.
10 seconds before I made that, it was gray.
Mhm,
And then all of a sudden, it just
yeah.
took off with color, and it was like that for another 10 seconds, and then it went back to gray. The
Mhm,
the the accessibility of a small mobile phone that I can use and grab and just get this shot in the heat of the moment, and it's not obtrusive, it doesn't scare people. I mean, there's so many
yeah,
benefits to it. I have to say it's
yeah.
been very freeing, and, I got bad news for all of you that are hoping to reach my age. When you do, everything's gonna hurt, and, I've had 11 shoulder surgeries. I have a bum knee, bum hip. I just can't physically. I mean, remember, I'm old. So when I started at this, I had a stainless steel tripod because there was no such thing as carbon
Yeah, right.
fiber. And it had a big Wimberley head on it that was made of stainless
Hmm.
steel and an
Yep.
800 millimeter f5.6 lens on a big body. And it was
Yep.
roughly 33 pounds riding on my
Yep.
shoulder as I traipsed through the mountains. And I did this for decades. Well, turns out that's not good for your shoulder. So I simply don't have much choice. You may not know this, but 5 years ago, I switched from Canon to Olympus, and I was an Olympus visionary for
Oh, okay.
almost
I did know that actually.
yeah, I was
Yeah.
Olympus visionary for almost 5 years, and the only reason I resigned from the program was I got this job that required me to use different cameras, and if you're an Olympus visionary, you gotta use Olympus
Got to
cameras.
use Lepus. Yeah.
Unfortunately, there was no Olympus cameras on the production list, so I resigned. We still are in good relationship. I love them. I love those cameras.
Mm.
But that was a move made to save my shoulder. Now this is
Yep.
another move where again, everything that I own that I carry for the most significant iPhone job, the total kit, including the
Hmm.
bag, weighs 7
Yep.
pounds.
Yeah.
And I
Yep.
mean, that's just to me, that's just pure bliss
Yep.
because what I've always tried to teach my students is get the camera out of the way and let your
Hmm.
heart and your mind take over because that's where
Mm.
photography really lives.
Yep.
Understanding how to chase light, understanding that the the place where light and shadow meets, that's where
Hmm.
the art of photography begins. And if you're
Yep.
thinking about your gear, you're not thinking about that.
Yeah, it's
And
true.
because I've switched to mobile, I can think about that,
Mm.
and I think I'm getting better. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
stick with this for a while.
Yeah. Absolutely. I went with Olympus when the EM1, the Mark One, was around, and I was shooting with that for some time. And the thing that I missed from the Olympus ecosystem, if you like, is it was the what was it called? It was where you could do the light painting. I can't remember what it was called. It was like a bulb mode, but it wasn't a regular bulb mode. You may
I'm
know
not
what I'm talking.
I'm
It
not
was like
sure.
light. It
Pro
was like
capture?
live. No, it was
No.
live. I can't think of what it's called. It was like live
Well,
composition. Is live comp, is that what it's called?
let me tell you,
And you could,
there is a special Olympus camera now just for night photographers. It's the OMD EM1 Mark III that has a
yep,
special mode just for what you do. So you should take
yeah,
a
right.
chance and rent one of those at least and try it
Hmm.
out. It's not my
Yep,
thing, so I never used it, but
yep.
it's a camera they released a few years ago, and I still love Olympus gear, but
Mm,
it's just now that I'm carrying one. I mean, I'm talking microphones, batteries, cage,
yep, yep,
filters, camera, the bag itself, less than 7 pounds.
yeah.
That's awful hard to go. It's awful hard to go back the other direction because
Absolutely, yeah.
when I load up my cinema camera with the 12K Ursa in the bag and stuff, it's 40 pounds.
Hmm. Yeah, yep,
And it's
yep.
I have to now the good thing about professional video work is we have a crew, and that's
Yeah,
why God invented young men.
yeah.
So, I sit in a chair and point, and people do things, and, I'm very good at that, so something needs to be moved, I don't touch it. In fact, I
Yeah.
can't touch it, it's against the union rules. In fact,
Oh,
most
right.
people don't know this, but as the cinematographer, I do not even start the camera. There's a guy who starts the camera. I don't focus the
Really?
camera. There's a guy that focuses the camera called the focus puller. I
Wow.
don't do any of this stuff. I don't touch the lights. That's the gaffers. That's what they do. I don't
What do you
touch
do?
any. I sit in a chair and I use a little scope to say this is what I want the shot to look like. I tell them what to make the shutter speed, which in video it's almost we use a thing called shutter angle. It's almost always 180 degrees to get a cinematic look,
Mhm.
which in translates in photography to twice your frame rate. So 24 frames
Yep,
per second in the US, so a 48th of a
yep,
second shutter speed. I make the
yep.
shutter speed, I make what we call the iris, we don't call it an aperture, and I tell them what neutral density filter to use, and I tell them the kind of camera move I want. I
Yep.
want what we call a quick pan, or I want an MCU, which stands for medium close up. And then I sit in
Hmm.
a chair, and the producer and the director says action, and I say action, and the guy presses the button, and I sit in the
Wow.
chair some more.
Wow.
So we
Wow.
have speed, which is like we're rolling. We got audio going. Action. The young kid pushes the button. The other kid does the focus pulling, and then I
Wow.
review the footage on a monitor that I'm holding, and I
Yep.
go, "Yeah, that looks good," or "No, let's reframe that." Or and I'm working off a shot list, so I'm like,
Yep.
"Okay, that was an MCU. Now we need a wide shot, so let's switch lenses." I tell them what lenses, but I just basically am barking orders all day, and I'm very good at it.
I'm going to try that next time I go out to film a video. I'm just going to sit in the chair and see what happens.
Yeah. Well, you have to have a crew of around 11 people with you like I do. That makes a big difference. Yeah,
Mate,
it's
I don't know 11 people.
yeah. Yeah, but for just so you know, it's not my preference. It's just that the market has
Yeah,
changed. People don't
I
want
understand. Yeah.
still photography like they used to. They want video.
Hmm. A few questions here. Is it possible to shoot media share with a time lapse? It is. The time lapse on the 13 Pro Max and the 12, they do it. They automatically do a night lapse. Like it'll take a longer photo, but they don't do it that well. There's an app called. I just did a video. I released it not that long ago. What was it called? Skyflow, I think it's called. And that does a better job. Just have a look at the most recent videos that I have. Skyflow is what it's called, and it's an app that you can manually set the frame rates and stuff. So it's going to give you a better result for a night lapse video. Um, Surprise! Now this guy Patrika, he's a bit of a smartass. He just put a photo this morning, a selfie photo of him leaning on a wall in a striped shirt. And one of the other boys said, "Oh, you looks like you're escaping from jail or something." He's a funny guy. He's actually been on the show. He's a very entertaining fellow. I think it's more skill to take good photos with a phone than a real camera. I have to imagine the pic before being taken. I guess I think it depends on the light that you have. I think it's quicker to take. Well, as you said before, it's quicker to get that photo
Yeah.
out. And there's definitely benefits of either side. I think. But mind you, that gap, like I said to you before we went live, that gap is getting smaller and smaller and
I
smaller.
can tell you right now, if I had a telephoto lens that could get
Mm-hmm.
me to 400 millimeters effective focal length on a full frame camera, it's
Mm-hmm.
almost a guarantee that I wouldn't own any other cameras.
Yeah. Yep.
But
That's fair enough too.
it would have to be very high quality. So it
Yep.
can't, what I've seen of the telephoto lenses so far, it's good in the center, but it gets real
Yeah.
mushy around the end on the
Yep.
corners. And
Yes.
and I'm sure it's a very difficult thing to do optically. Now the
Mm-hmm.
phone makers aren't going to do it because they'd have to put a giant piece of glass in the camera, and they don't want to do that because then people would complain. But
Yeah. Exactly.
it's unlikely that it'll be in this lifetime. But for me, but for you, I would say 10 years from now, we'll be into light field photography, and there
Mm-hmm.
won't be a single lens. There'll be 14 lenses on one
Yeah.
phone. They will
Yeah.
all work together to capture 360 degrees, and you'll
Yeah.
be able to infinitely pinch in and still have 100 megabytes of resolution,
Yeah.
and you won't lose anything. And light field photography is probably where we're going to go.
Yeah. I tend to agree. I
Yeah,
tend to agree.
and I probably won't be around then. Although in the United States we have a tax collecting authority known as the IRS, and they have vowed to never let me die. So it's possible I could still be here.
You're keeping the economy going, mate.
Yeah, they cannot afford for me to fall into the lake. So they actually have people shadow me. That when I go to the doctor, they tell the doctor, if he dies, you get audited. Just letting you
Yeah.
know.
What about this here? Have you tried this depth of field adapter?
I haven't, but it is. I have a friend who has one, And I do love a lot of the Beast Grip stuff. They make very good stuff. Its job is to give you more of the, beautiful portrait bouquet. And
Mhm.
even though it would adapt to a long lens, the image quality falls apart because its job is really just to soften everything up and
Yeah.
give you those big bouquet balls.
Yeah.
So it's not really intended for that. And frankly, once we get to that point, I'm going to grab my cinema cameras
Yeah. Sure.
because I mean there's not a huge difference in weight at that
Hmm.
point. And see,
Yeah.
that's what I struggle with. But, I really can't use cinema cameras unless I'm on a job because I just can't lift them. So I have to
Yeah.
have my crew with me, and
Hmm.
that is a big impediment to what I wanna do. I wanna be able
Sure.
to just go out like I've always done by myself, and the
Hmm.
problem is when you guys don't know this yet, but when you get close to 70, and yes, I can see it, it's just over the horizon. It's the scariest thing I've ever seen in my life, but it's
Mm.
out there. Uh, your brain stays 18. This is the tragedy of
Hmm.
getting old. So your brain says, "Hey, let's scamper up those rocks." And then your body says, "Hold up there, fellas. I don't know
Yeah.
what you're
That's right.
thinking, but ain't no chance we're gonna do that. You go ahead without us,
That's
because
right.
we ain't scampering anywhere." So it's just it's difficult. It's difficult. So the iPhone gives me a chance to stay in the game longer because
Hmm.
I can't scamper, but I can slowly walk up with the iPhone and not tip over because I have so much stuff on my shoulder and still maybe
Yeah.
for another couple years get a shot. And I want you to know, I'm grateful. I'm extremely grateful for this
Mm.
technology.
Hmm.
You can't know what it's like until you're separated from something you love, and my
Yeah.
medical problems have occasionally done that to me, and I'm
Hmm.
telling you, it's just such a joyful thing to know that I can still make images that I can sell even from
Hmm.
something that'll fit in my shirt pocket.
Yep. Absolutely. I think there is benefit in not scampering up the hill, though. You get to
Yes, there
see
is.
everything that they're missing as they're running up the hill.
That's true, that's true. You
Yeah.
can look straight down and see something that someone scampered over. So,
Yeah. Absolutely.
well, here's the thing, that's another part of getting old. Everything you do is slow, so you have a lot of time to reflect. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
I really do think that the iPhone has caused me to see better.
Okay.
I spend more time looking and seeing than I do shooting, and it's because I don't have to think about the camera. I literally do not have to think about it
Oh,
at
okay.
all.
I'm with you. Yep.
And,
Yep.
Ansel Adams used to go to places with nothing but sketchbooks and a Ratten number 90 filter. Now that's WRATTEN. You can look
Hmm.
it up. It's a
Yep.
yellow filter and it's designed to take the color out of a scene because he
Yep.
was working in black and white and he wanted to
Yeah.
see what the scene would look like. And people thought
Yeah.
it was
Right.
a monocle, but it wasn't. It was
Oh.
so that he could see it in black and white. And he would go
Yep.
up for a whole year maybe and sketch all the different light patterns, sketch all the different, ways that things worked. And then the following year, he'd traipse up there with his 8x10 view camera and
Yeah.
and a couple of glass slides and make an image. So
Hmm.
this contemplative, deliberate,
Mm.
thoughtful approach to photography, it's something that most young people cannot do because they're just too impatient. And
Yep.
it's the advantage of hiring an old guy like me. It comes natural to me.
Yeah. It's that instant, almost instant gratification of I want that. There it is.
Well,
Not. It's not deliberate. I get what
when
you're
I
saying.
when I was working with bigger cameras and blinds, I would always have every year someone would say, "Mr. Bourne, I want to be your assistant. I want to do what you do." And I would always respond, "No, you don't." And they'd say, "Yes, I do." And I'd say, "No, you really don't. What you want is my paycheck, but you do not want to put in the time
Yeah.
or the effort, nor do you have the patience, and I'll prove it to you. I'm gonna go to Texas. I'm gonna sit in a blind and try to photograph a Harris hawk. That's one of the most skittish birds in North America. It's also the
Okay.
only bird in the world that hunts in packs, and
Oh.
it's gonna be 100 degrees, and they have a real good sense of smell, so you can't wear anything that's got deodorant or anything, and you can't bring your phone, so you can't check Facebook, and we're going to sit there and we're not going to talk. We're going to be quiet, and the bird is going to be very skittish, and it may take 3 days to get him on the perch. And if you can pass that 3 days, not only will I give you the job, I'll give you the entire camera kit I'm working with.
Yeah.
12 to 14 minutes is the average bailout time. So, it's, they hear that speech and then they go, okay, I can follow the rules. Then like 3 minutes goes by and they go, so, when do you think the bird's going to come? And I'm like, remember the rule about not talking? Oh, yeah. Sorry. Another 3 minutes go by.
Yeah.
Do you think it's going to be longer now?
See, I think with that, I think that your military background plays a big part in that.
Yeah.
I remember many years ago, you would lay in ambush for 24 hours straight, not doing anything. So you've experienced that, you've tolerated that, and it gives you that level of tolerance when you're doing what you're doing now.
Well,
to me, that's
on top of that, though, there's something that drives it, which is I love the birds, and it's hard for people to do what I do. I tell people, photograph what you love, because if you do anything else, it's going to suck for you.
Yep.
I mean, I lay in the snow for 2 hours in the minus 17 degrees to photograph an eagle. Trust me, I'm only doing that because I love birds. It's not something that you can fake. You either do love them or you don't. So for me, it's okay to wait. I don't mind doing it a bit, because I love telling the bird stories, and I look at my job as speaking for them, since they have no voice. So my goal is to make just even a small dent in somebody's brain, to say, maybe I won't discount the birds. Maybe I won't run over the bird next time. Maybe I won't advocate for destroying this forest so I can have a swimming pool. This is my goal, and this is what helps me sit in a hot blind in Texas for 3 days.
Yeah, that's fair enough, mate. We've gone on for a long time. There's something that I do want to ask you before we wrap it up. Is you're using the iPhone to take your photos. What apps are you using on your iPhone?
Oh, well, I've got a lot of them. I use First Light a lot. But since I do mostly video these days, Filmic Pro and Double Take, which is free, by the way, and brilliant, because you can use 2 of the 3 cameras. It's insane. It's free. I still can't get over the fact that it's free. I use Spectre for long exposure.
Okay.
It's made by the same people, I think, that make Halide.
Yep.
And I use the Moment app sometimes. I use the B-Script app whenever I'm using their anamorphic lens. But I'd probably say First Light is my main one. And there are a couple of situations, like if I just want a quick and dirty time lapse, I'm just going to use the iPhone app because it always works.
Absolutely. Yep.
If it's dusk, I'm just going to use the iPhone because it does the night mode automatically, and it always works. So I'd say 20% iPhone app, 50% First Light if I'm doing still photography, and 30% all the other apps. I have all of them. But Filmic Pro almost exclusively on the video side, and their product Double Take, because Filmic Pro, it literally has all the features of my $15,000 cinema camera in a $15 app.
Yeah. I think I listened to that same conversation that you had with Jefferson about what you use and what he uses, and I'm kind of in between the two of you. For almost every single photo that I'll take on the iPhone, I'm just going to use the camera app. It's only when I want to do something out of what that can do, like a long exposure photo, that I'm going to go for something else. That everything else is almost always the camera app. Yeah.
Well, it's very good. It's just that most people don't know how to use it.
Yeah. It's not that hard to use, though. It's not difficult to use.
It's just that, like, Jefferson leads a lot of photo walks, and he'll get all these questions from people. Well, how do I make it do this? And they don't even know it's capable. And they're like, should I buy an app? Like, no, it does it right there. Now, there are things like in time lapse, for instance. One of the things I don't like about the Apple app is it makes all the decisions.
Correct. Yeah.
So that's when I will switch to Filmic Pro if I have something specific in mind, because it lets you set how many frames per minute. It lets you, control all those things. But generally, if I think it looks like an easy scene that the iPhone isn't going to struggle with, I'll set that sucker up for an hour and just come away with a
Mhm.
beautiful time lapse, and it'll be in 4K. And I'm just thinking, life is good.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, sir, I think we'll end it there. We've gone on for
Sorry,
hour and 5 minutes.
I talk
Don't
so
be sorry
much.
at all. Not at all. I think everybody that's in here watching this got a lot out of what you've got to say. There's 70 odd years of knowledge that you just put out a little bit of. It's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, thank you again, and
Thanks for
thank you
having me.
everybody for no worries at all, mate. We'll have a chat about your stuff a little bit after. But
Okay.
thanks everyone for coming in, and we'll see you all in 2 weeks' time. Catch us later.
Thanks for having me. Take care.